people out here that are reaching out, but they're not reaching out with a genuine concern as far as to the outcome of the people whom they're reaching to. Let me give you an example. You've got people that are served on a soup line, but they're complaining and grumbling all the while they're on that line. They're just doing it because maybe their churches have they're gonna have a day to serve the homeless somewhere, and they just on the line, but they're not really. It's not really in their heart to do it. So when I find people that's got this in their heart, that's why you see me on your show oftentimes with different people, because these are people that I know that have a sincere desire to help other people. And then when I met Rashida some time ago over there in the NAACP office over on Jefferson Street, and she began to talk to me at that time about some of the things that she was doing and some of the things that she was ready to do. She was explaining to me some things about Gideon's Army, and somehow we got disconnected for a period of time. And then I got an email about an event that she was having concerning the school to prison pipeline, and I immediately wrote that on my calendar, immediately responded to her email, guaranteed her that I would be there. Not only did I come, but I brought another one of my associate ministers with me from the church, had another one scheduled to come. So I'm genuinely concerned with what they're concerned about.
Very good. And of course, we're going to take our first commercial break, and then we'll have Ms. Hughes to give us some information during the second segment. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you, and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Ms. Fatuga, Ms. Hughes, and Pastor Walker, and the issue is from school to prison, breaking the pipeline. And all three have given us excellent information in reference to some of the issues faced by many of the young people involved in public education today. And I think that, Ms. Hughes, you can give us some information about your background and your education and what you think about this whole idea of going from prison to, from school to prison. Let's talk about it from that perspective.
Okay, my name is Hughes, and I am a senior in high school, but the road to actually be a senior has not always been easy. I have always been faced with conflicts and obstacles to get over, and let's just say the school system has not made it easy for me. My junior year of high school, I had experienced something where I had played part in a fight, but I wasn't really at fault to be accused enough to be put out of school, but I was. And as of the zero tolerance in MMPS schools, I was kicked out for a calendar year. I appealed it, and I was kicked out for 6 weeks, and I was able to return back to a troubled high school or a transition school where I received my education to become a senior now with behavior students. And I just didn't like the way that I was placed. Like, it wasn't right. It was like they moved me from being a IB honor student to taking standard classes.
Do you find, Ms. Fatuga, her story familiar in terms of these transitional schools and transitional kind of situation? And say something in reference to that.
It's very familiar. There are a lot of students who have infractions, and instead of them being dealt with in the classroom or even in the office, they're pushed out of schools, pushed into from expulsions, suspensions to alternative schools. I do know that Metro Public Schools is working on their alternative school program, and I want to acknowledge the work that they are doing and the support that they've even given to Gideon's Army as we get out in the community and do the work. However, right now there is an issue, and it's a national issue. It's not just Metro Public Schools, it's not just the state of Tennessee, but nationally there's an issue with zero tolerance where our students are being pushed out for a lot of reasons that are ridiculous, and they are not consistent across race. They're not consistent across the school districts, even across schools, even as it's dealt with from teacher to teacher. What the research does say is that kids are funneled out of the classroom and into the office at an unfair rate. And once they get to the office, it's pretty consistent how they're suspended and expelled. However, we know that this definitely affects Black children, especially Black males, more than any other demographic. And that's when you control for behavior, for socioeconomic status. So it doesn't necessarily matter what they've done or what their economic status is. It's still very racially biased, and it's not necessarily white teachers doing this to Black children. It's just an issue where our boys are being funneled out of the school. In this case, Mashirka was caught up in that same system, which is unfortunate. Like she said, she was an IB student. I was involved at that time. I looked through the accounts that other students had written where they said she did not do it, or she tried to stop the fight, that it had nothing to do with her, and still they wanted to suspend her for a calendar year, and she would have been suspended for a calendar year had we not appealed it. And even with the appeal, we got a 6 weeks, and I think we really should have taken it to one more level, but you know, that's parental decision.
Do you find that is general, the suspension for that period of time, for a calendar year, and how detrimental from your own experiences can that be to a student?
Suspending a student for any amount of time, expulsions, it's proven to be ineffective. Research says it is the most ineffective form of discipline in schools, and yet it's the most widely used. And we've known that since, I think one of the first studies was done by the Children's Defense Fund in 1975. So we've known this for a long time, but you know, resistance to change from the system, even resistance to change from the community, because it's what we're familiar with. So a lot of times we say, well, these kids are bad. We need to just get rid of the kids who are causing trouble. But people don't look at things from a systemic perspective, understanding that everybody is functioning within this system the way the system is designed. And so we really have to take apart what's going wrong in this machine, so that everybody and everything functions, so that our young people, all of our young people, not just the Black students, not just the white students, but so that everyone is successful.
And so, Pastor Walker, looking at from your own experiences, how would you assess some of the things that are happening to our young men, especially? Because I think that while certainly Ms. Hughes' example is what happened to a female, but what about some of the young men that are caught up in the same kind of transitional kind of suspension kind of thing?
Dr. Haney, I would imagine that it's happening in even greater numbers when it comes to the young males. I think they have the greatest incidences. I don't have the stats on that of being kicked out of school. You know, they call me expulsion. I call them kicked out. You know, because when I got kicked out of the school, I was kicked out of the school system. I had no chance to go get an education. As a matter of fact, I went into the military, went into the Navy, and ended up with a GED through OIC after I got out of the Navy. Those were options that were available to me then. You know, you throw a child out of school now, the options are limited, the peer pressures are there, then they get caught up in gangs and all kind of different other things. And that's the whole design of the system, to funnel them out of the school system into a negative setting somewhere away from the school system. You run into a lot of young Black males, especially through my time going in and out of the prison system. I'm constantly out River Bend prison. You're gonna run into a lot of young Black males that can't read, can't write. And one of the reasons for it is because they're not being taught while they're in school, because maybe you got a behavior issue that nobody cares to have enough compassion and concern to deal with and address. So as soon as a child gets in any kind of trouble, then zero tolerance kicks in. You get rid of the so-called bad apple. So now this so-called bad apple is in society with a mindset that says, I don't care because you didn't care for me. And that's what we're instilling in our youth when we do that type of stuff. When it comes to Ms. Hughes, it's becoming dear to my heart, because I have a granddaughter that's about to graduate from high school, and perhaps she didn't go through a lot of the things and experience some of the things that she experienced. And there are a lot of people with that mindset that says, well, it doesn't affect me and mine, and let them deal with it. But you can't have that mindset, because if it's affecting her, then it's affecting all of us. And all of us should be involved and come to,
Very good. And let's take this second commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you, and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Ms. Fatuga, Ms. Hughes, and Pastor Walker in reference to some of the issues involved with young people getting caught up in expulsion and eventually ending up in the correction system. And of course, Ms. Fatuga, let's look at some of your experiences in terms of what we're talking about here today.
Okay. Well, I think one thing that I did want to bring up is that there are a lot of things that can be done to stop and destroy the prison pipeline at its roots. We've done a lot of research, and so we understand that, number one, zero tolerance policies have to be addressed. The juvenile court system is going to have to be restructured. We can't just continue to bring in different programs and put bandages on the situation. We have to restructure the program, which is actually, it's called BARGE, Balanced and Restorative Justice, and it's recommended by our federal government, but it's something that we have to do here. The other thing is looking at how our young people are policed and reshaping how we view harm and how we allow our young people to make mistakes, to learn from their mistakes, and to repair the harm that's caused. Does that mean that we'll just stop suspensions and expulsions altogether? No. Does it mean that we'll keep every single child from being incarcerated? No. But there are definite things that we need to do so that we can make these changes and save as many of our young people as possible. And so we're launching a really big campaign. The young people have named it Set Your Own Bars. That they don't have to answer to these statistics. They don't have to become a statistic. They don't have to prescribe to the youth violence and all of these things. And they don't have to bow down to this system of oppression of this actual prison pipeline that's funneling them, that they have the power to make the changes that need to be changed. And so phase one, which is what we're in right now, is educating the community and building a stronger base of young people to participate. We've got some really amazing high school and college students who are leading the way, paving the way, but we can always use more. We can always use more hands. And who knows better what is happening than the young people who are in that system?
Ms. Hughes, when you think about some of the things that Ms. Fatuga has said here, can you build your own experiences into how you felt when you were expelled from the school system? I mean, what kind of emotions overwhelmed you during that time, and how long did you feel depressed and